Welcome to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. And now here's your host, Wade T. Lightheart.
Want awesome health? How about doubling your energy? With our free Awesome Health course, you can get a new video and lesson every single day for 84 straight days. The course covers everything from optimizing your digestion, nutrient intake, correct health issues, including weight, skin, energy, immune system, and so much more. The course could easily be worth $200 or $300 for, and yet it's 100% free when you go to bioptimizer.com. That's bioptimizers.com. Once you're there, just enter your name and email to get the first 3 phases of the Bioptimization report. You'll get the report immediately and begin getting your video lessons each and every day from there on in.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's Wade T. Lightheart from Bioptimizers with another edition of the Awesome Health Podcast. And today we're going to talk about brain health reimagined with algae. And our guest today is a returning guest, Catharine, who is an expert in algae nutrition, a wellness thought leader, and experienced entrepreneur and sought-after speaker. Catharine's journey into the fascinating world of algae began in 2008 when her younger sister was diagnosed with breast cancer and advised by her oncologist that an alkaline diet would improve her healing. Catharine left her 25-year corporate career to help her sister identify which foods were alkaline. And this led her to algae, the most alkaline, chlorophyll-rich, high-protein, nutrient-dense food in the world. And so her company, Energy Bits, was born. Welcome back, Catharine.
Well, thank you very much. Good to be here. Yeah. I like being a frequent flyer on your podcast. And since I was here a year and a half ago or so, I've dug even deeper into the research of algae and all the medicinal benefits it offers. And, like I said before we started taping, I feel like algae is like the child prodigy then because it keeps showing me things that it does, and it's all science-based. So it's just that the science hasn't been shared with people. So it's my honor to be able to walk people through some of that science so you don't have to do the 13 years of research that I did.
Well, we went into a lot of information in our first podcast, and we'll put a link to that show notes. But just for someone who's jumping in right now, can you give us, say, the basic points of what algae is,
Yes.
why it's so important, and why you're so passionate about it?
Okay, terrific. Well, first of all, algae is a food category. So it's not a supplement, it's a food. And we grow ours in triple filtered spring mountain water. But before I get into that, I want to help people understand the different categories, because just like you say, well, fruit, you have fruit, and then you have apples and oranges, and then you have different types of apples. So algae is a category. There's 2 main types of algae. One is called macroalgae. The other one is called microalgae. We're talking about microalgae today, but let me tell you what macroalgae is, just so you can put it in context. It's that big stringy stuff that washes up on shore, also known as seaweed or dulse or kelp. Now, it's only in the sea, and there's only a handful of strains of it, and it's known for having high fiber, also high iodine because it comes from the ocean, but virtually no nutrition. So only in the sea, high fiber, virtually no nutrition. Microalgae, which is what we're talking about today, is the complete opposite. It has either 0 fiber or virtually no fiber. Spirulina has no fiber. Chlorella, what we'll talk about, has some fiber. And it is everywhere. Unlike seaweed, which is only in the sea, microalgae is in the sea, the lakes, the rivers, the streams, your swimming pool, your aquarium, everywhere. The soil even. And it has the highest concentration of nutrition in the universe. Something like 1 million microalgae could fit on the head of a pin. And then when you consolidate it into these little tablets, that as we sell them, you get so much concentration. In fact, the United Nations has endorsed algae as the answer to world hunger because it has 3 times the amount of protein as steak. And the NASA has endorsed algae for 50 years as the most nutrient-dense food in the world because they say 1,000 you have 1,000 grams of nutrition. So 1 gram of algae has the same nutrition as 1,000 grams of fruits or vegetables. So very, very concentrated nutrition. So it's the trouble. And so there's multiple types of microalgae, but the two main ones that you may have heard about are blue-green and green. Now, spirulina is one type of blue-green algae, and chlorella is one type of green algae. Those are the two that we're going to talk about today. And these are the types that you see everywhere, sold at Whole Foods, Target, and on our website, Energy Bits as well. So spirulina is a blue-green algae, but when it's only one strain of blue-green algae. So when you hear about an algae bloom closing your beach, we're not talking about spirulina. Spirulina is harvested in fresh water as an agricultural crop. Whatever that blue-green algae is that closed your favorite beach, it's just another strain, and it is toxic. But by the way, algae blooms show up when there are toxins in the water, because algae kills bacteria. Algae absorbs toxins, and it does it in the ocean as well as in your body. And the reason why we need algae today more than any other time in our entire livelihood here on Earth is twofold. One, we are getting sick. Chronic disease is on the rise. Doesn't matter whether it's cancer, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, Alzheimer's. Our bodies just aren't getting the nutrients that they need to perform optimally because our food is so overprocessed. Our soils have been so monocrop, there's no minerals left in them. So even if you are eating vegetables, and even if they are organic, you're simply not getting the same nutrition that your grandparents did. They've done tests, and the broccoli of today has like 10% of the nutrition that was in broccoli 50 years ago. So because your body is not getting the nutrients that you need, it can't function for you, which means you are susceptible to a weaker immune system, mitochondrial damage, inflammation, and all of these symptoms lead to chronic disease. So the fact that there's no nutrition in our food is causing so many of our illnesses. And as you're going to find out, spirulina it's the most nourishing food in the world and fills all your nutritional gaps. The other reason why we need algae more now than ever is...
Hold on one second here, because there's a little bit of confusion that I can sense, is the difference between algae and spirulina.
Spirulina is a type of algae.
There you go.
Algae is a food category. You have macroalgae and microalgae. Macroalgae is the stringy stuff in the ocean. Microalgae is microscopic, and there's tens of thousands of strains. One strain of microalgae is blue-green algae. One strain of microalgae is green algae. One strain of blue-green algae is spirulina. Okay. One strain of green algae is chlorella. So you see the
branches on the tree. So
branches on the tree. That's right.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying.
A lot of people, no, thank you for asking, because lots of people, they say, well, I don't take spirulina, but I take algae. Or they say, I don't take algae, but I take spirulina. They have no idea that they are the same thing. And part of that's because of that confusion. That's one of the reasons why I'm passionate about educating people, because when you start to understand why you're getting sick or why aging is catching up on us, and what your body needs and what algae is and why algae is the key that unlocks the door to great health and prolonging your longevity, you'll see, and you'll find out too. I don't think I had this knowledge when I was on my last podcast with you, that algae mitochondria health is everything. Protecting your mitochondria is everything. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But that mitochondria evolved from algae. It's an endosymbiotic theory. It's evolutionary proven. So it makes complete sense to me that algae has everything that your mitochondria need, because they're family, and you need to protect your mitochondria if you want to protect your health. And to do that, you need to have nourishment, and spirulina is the best way to do that. And the other thing you need is to get rid of the toxins that are in your body.
So I want to go to the evolutionary theory. So I know you're dumping a lot of information fast, so I want to interject.
Okay.
So from an evolutionary aspect on mitochondrial function, because we're going to go into this, and this is a topic that is very prominent in the biohacking space. Also in longevity and metabolic medicine. Those are all areas which are looking at essentially energy production.
Correct.
And I want you, and you may or may not know this, I'm not sure, because I was listening to some evolutionary biologists at a really high level talking about what's really interesting about the cultivation of life on the planet and this particular element of the life emerging at like some heat vents deep in the ocean at long period of time, which sprung forth the single cell organisms, and they had to stay within this heat duct until somehow the biology broke through and found these ways to produce energy. So is this where the biological basis happened, or was it further down the line from there?
It was, well, they may have been happening at the same time. So let me give you my story, my part of the evolutionary history, and I have a diagram that I'll show you.
Oh, great.
So mankind has been on Earth about 200 million years. And before algae showed up on Earth, and it was the first life on Earth, the Earth was gas and water, no oxygen. Right. Nobody really knows why the very first single cell organism started growing, but it did. And it was an anaerobic cell because, of course, there was no oxygen on Earth, so it couldn't be aerobic. And that anaerobic cell, single cell, generated ATP. And a byproduct of ATP is oxygen. So after 1 billion years of this anaerobic cell multiplying, releasing oxygen, now there was a lot of oxygen on Earth. And two things happened. Now the anaerobic cell was struggling because it didn't do so well in oxygen. And now larger aerobic cells started growing, but they weren't generating ATP as well. So what happened, and this is all proven, professor at MIT came up with this theory back in the 60s. It's called endosymbiotic theory, and it's now accepted by everybody in evolutionary biology. So what basically happened was that the large cell that was aerobic, but not generating ATP very well, absorbed the smaller anaerobic cell, but instead of digesting it, they coexisted. So here's the original cell by itself, anaerobic. Billion years later, there's now more oxygen, so aerobic cells could start growing, and it absorbed the little cells, but instead of digesting it, it coexisted and became mitochondria. Now, this was a cyanobacteria. Spirulina is a cyanobacteria. Remember I said spirulina has no fiber? That's because it's a bacteria. It is not even a plant. So cyanobacteria evolved to become mitochondria. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to point this out to you because I'd like to maybe go into mitochondria health next, because when this cell was absorbed, that outer membrane never disappeared when it got absorbed. It had a second membrane put around it, a lipid membrane. All of our cells in our body have a lipid membrane, except mitochondria have a second membrane. And this second membrane is where ATP production occurs. And this second membrane prevents virtually all antioxidants and drugs from getting in. But I have found at least 3 antioxidants that can get into that inner membrane to stop free radical damages. This is Catharine's theory of aging. 3 of those antioxidants are chlorophyll, superoxide dismutase, and glutathione. Melatonin can also get in there. But the problem is for aging, and this is why I think when people get to 30s and 40s and certainly 50s and 60s, this is when chronic disease really sets in. And I believe it's because, it's been proven that after 30, your body slows down its production of superoxide dismutase, which is a critical antioxidant and one of the few that can get into the mitochondria inner membrane to stop free radical damage. And by the time you're 40 and 50, you have virtually no superoxide dismutase. And you can't get superoxide dismutase from any food. So now your mitochondria are being exposed to free radical damage. And as they get damaged, they either die or they send wrong signals, which cause less cellular energy to be produced. And when there's less cellular energy, that means all the functions in your body don't work very well. Your neurotransmitters don't get enough cellular energy. Your lymphatic system doesn't get enough energy. Your digestion, nothing. I tell people it's like having a dinner party. You have 10 people, and for dinner, you have maybe one cupcake, and each person gets a teeny little slice of cupcake for dessert. Nobody's very happy. And so when your mitochondria either decrease in quantity and decrease in quality, they aren't generating enough cellular energy. So no body part gets enough cellular energy to do anything well. This is when you start having health issues. But you're going to find out that spirulina has the nourishment, particularly the highest concentration of superoxidase in the world. So now it gets into the inner membranes of the mitochondria, helps generate, protect, and restore the mitochondria. So now they can generate more cellular energy. And now it's like having 10 cupcakes or 100 cupcakes. All your body parts, your brain, your lymphatic system, your digestion, get what they need, because cellular energy, also known as ATP, is what propels life in your body. This is the food for your cells. And I'm going to get a little geeky on you because I want you to understand that process and what happens when your mitochondria get damaged, and why spirulina and the nutrient called, the enzyme called superoxidase is the answer to so much of this. But you can't get it from food. You can't get it from really supplements, and your body stops making it after the age of 40. So this is like having the police force suddenly come back in there and protect you. It's called superoxidase.
And that's prevalent in spirulina and algae.
Yes, it's also in chlorella, but the spirulina has the highest concentration. We did lab tests to identify that. And the way that it works is so fascinating, and it makes complete sense. I mean, spirulina also has a very powerful pigment we'll talk about in a minute called phycocyanin that has been proven to kill cancer cells. But if you'll indulge me, I'd like to walk people through how the mitochondria get damaged and how energy is actually created through the electron transport chain, so that you can understand why the spirulina and the superoxidase is so powerful.
Yeah, and for those who want a version, we talked about electron covalent transfer in the Awesome Health series, explaining about what is the actual essence of nutrition. And I'm glad that you brought this topic up, because there's all this talk about food and energy, or I want more energy, but most of the representations are purely biochemical and don't actually give credence to what's happening at the cell, which is electron covalent transfer. So if you can dive into that, I'm ready to geek out with you, and some of our listeners will be as well.
Excellent. And before we do that, I want to help people understand there is a huge difference between a stimulant and cellular energy. A stimulant speeds up the molecules, and it's usually a rush and a crash. And I make the analogy of it's like putting paper on a fire. You get a big burst, and also that bursting causes insulin spikes, which aren't good for you. And cellular energy is at the cellular level. And then your body, it's like, I say having more cellular energy is like having more money. When you have more money, you can do more things and you have more choices. When you have more cellular energy, your body will use that energy and redirect it to wherever the greatest need is at the moment. And that's why when you hear about spirulina giving you energy, it's in the moment, but it's at the cellular level. And maybe if you go for a run, you're going to have a great run. But let's say you want to go to bed, you're going to have a great sleep because it's directed to whatever your activity is. Mm-hmm. And it's like putting a log on the fire. A stimulant like coffee or sugar is that putting paper on the fire. And when you're going to find out about spirulina, it gives you more cellular energy because of the efficiency at the electron transport chain level, which is steady energy. I say there's no drama.
Real quick on that. When we're talking, for someone who wants to just jump in here, log on the fire analogy, how much of this product do you need to essentially be throwing logs on your cellular fires sufficient level that you would feel a correlative energy boost?
Absolutely. Great question. It totally depends on you. It depends on your health level. It depends what your activity is. So if We say 10 tablets is for an average person. It's also ketogenic, so people use it for
per day or in
per
divided
day,
dosage?
per serving. But if you're gonna you want to do a marathon, you should have at least 30 tablets, 10 minutes before you start your marathon, and then probably another 10 or 15 every hour to sustain your level of activity. So if you're not very active, you could use less. If you have a health condition, if you have cancer, diabetes, any kind of health condition, you're going to need 30 tablets, because that's the therapeutic dose, because your body needs to be nourished more to get you over the hump of wherever your health situation is.
Now, is there a top end of is there a limit to how much?
I don't think you'd want more than 200. We have NHL players that take 75, our entire teams, they take 75 spirulina before a game because they need the focus and the energy on the ice. And then they take 75 chlorella after the game, because chlorella pulls out toxins, including lactic acid, and also builds their immune system. And any athlete knows that when you push yourself hard, you're also pushing on your immune system. So if you
how long,
how long would it take before you notice it?
Yeah, like what's the turnaround?
20 minutes, 15 minutes.
That's really poignant. So, and then how long is, say, if you got a bottle of tablets, like what's the durability factor of like how long till it's no good? Is it sustainable?
Algae actually never goes bad. Never. It's the strangest crop, and I'll tell you why. Any other food, any other crop, corn, wheat, tomatoes, doesn't matter what you're growing. If the growing conditions deteriorate, like not enough rain, not enough sun, it dies, right?
Yep.
Not algae. It just goes dormant indefinitely until the growing conditions return and it starts growing again. And an example I have is that the National Geographic sent some people up to the Antarctic, and they were doing ice carbon dating, and they got a piece of ice and it had some algae on it. So when they got back to the lab, they found out the ice was about 1.5 billion years old. And they put the algae in a petri dish and threw some water on it. Darn thing started growing again. So it's
been dormant for 1.5 billion years, and it was still good.
Still good.
That's pretty remarkable.
Unbelievable, right? So when we sell our algae, we have to put an expiry date on it because we're required by the FDA. So it's usually 3 or 4 years. But if you put it, it gets shoved to the back of your counter or cupboard or something, and you find it 5 years later, you can still use it.
I'm sure there's some people right now going to the back of their cupboard and grabbing that stuff, or in their fridge, and like, oh my God, I got start eating this right now, So like, I'm gonna go into my cupboard and see if there's any lying around in the back.
Yeah.
Cupboard. Yeah. That's crazy. So
I will say you want to keep it out of sunlight, because sunlight will pull the chlorophyll out, and you'll lose the chlorophyll, but all the nutrients are still there. And there's a passage in the Bible where they say, Jesus was feeding the people manna from heaven, and they now think he was scraping algae off the rocks, and it was white because it was on the rocks, so the light pulled all the chlorophyll out, but it still had all the protein and the saccharides, so it was still nourishing, right?
Interesting. That's interesting. Okay.
So,
that's a great story.
Yeah. So we sell in various forms. We do have we sell them mostly in large bags, and there's 1,000 tablets in the bag. And I use the calculation from NASA that says 1 gram of algae has the same nutrition as 1,000 grams of fruits and vegetables. So using that math, I determined that 1 bag of our algae tablets, 1,000 tablets, has the same nutrition as 551 pounds of vegetables. That's about 30 grocery carts of food. Okay.
Wow.
It's very efficient nutrition. And if you took 10 tablets a day, I want to put this into so you understand the cost value analysis. 10 tablets a day, and we have a 20% discount code for your listeners, Bioptimizers. It works out to $1 a day. If you took 10 tablets a day, it's $1 a day, and that bag will last you 3 months. 551 pounds of vegetables lasting you 3 months, and they never go bad like vegetables. They don't give you gas like vegetables. There's no problem with kids having them, children, pets, grandparents. You have your stomach removed, you can still take this stuff. It's unbelievable. So it's very powerful, efficient nutrition. You know, preppers, sometimes we have preppers that buy like 20 bags because they're sure the world's going to go crazy. And, you know, we could airlift this stuff to any disaster area and they could have it forever. It's
from a fasting perspective, are people using this during fasting cycles?
Oh, yeah. I was on Dr. Mindy Peltz's podcast. It went live in the summertime. She loves our stuff because it does not interfere, does not break your fast, because there's zero carbs. And especially spirulina, because it's a bacteria, has no cellulose wall, so it gets absorbed instantly if you chew it through sublingually through your mouth. But even if you swallow it, within 10 minutes, it's in your fully throughout your entire body. It almost bypasses digestion. So it's bioavailable. I mean, you're the Bioptimizers. You know how important bioavailability is of nutrients. And a lot of people, as they get older, they can't absorb nutrients. So it's not just what you eat, it's what you absorb that determines, you know, whether the nutrients are going to be put to good use or not. And this is an example. Protein, if you eat animal protein, and I do, you know, your body can't absorb the protein. It has to break it down into amino acids. And in animal protein, it's all bound up. Then you have peptides that are in smaller clusters. But algae protein is already in individual aminos. There's 18 of the 20, and including all 9 that your body can't make. So it's a complete protein. So this makes it very efficient. You need protein for everything, for healing, for your organs, for your brain, for your muscles at all ages, particularly as you get older, because people, you know, they don't work out as much, and so they lose a lot of muscle. They need protein. This is the best, easiest way to get it. And algae is ketogenic, it's ancestral, it's paleo, it's keto, it's low carb, low fiber, low calorie, 1 calorie per tablet, you know, and each one of these tablets, again, using that calculation from NASA, has the same nutrition as an entire plate of vegetables. That equals that. So if you don't like vegetables, if you're traveling, if your kids won't eat them, if your husbands won't eat them, or you just don't have time for a meal, you could have 30 tablets and you won't be hungry for 5 hours. You know, we have doctors now, when they're prescribing Ozempic, they're also making sure their patients take our product, because with Ozempic, they don't have any hunger, so they're not eating. But we know your cells are constantly regenerating. And if you don't give your cells nourishment, it's like trying to build a skyscraper out of sand. You know, you're going to run into a health issue. It's just a matter of time. You've got to nourish your body. And so that they know people aren't eating because they're taking the Ozempic. And whether you take Ozempic or not, you could literally live on spirulina and get all the nourishment you need and not miss a single nutrient, not a single mineral, nothing. It's unbelievable. I know.
Let's talk about brain health, particularly, because that's a big topic about. Okay,
I definitely want to get to the mitochondria, though.
Well, right. So, okay, we'll back up to mitochondria, but
yeah, let's talk about mitochondria, and here's why, because it's a nice segue into brain health. Yeah. Why? Because your brain has the highest concentration of mitochondria in your entire body.
The Bioptimizer mission is to help more of the world fix their digestion at a core level. The truth is, your digestion is only as good as your enzyme levels. Imagine trying to build a house with a tree. It's impossible. You need to chop the tree down into small pieces. Similarly, in order for your food to be used by your body, it must be broken down into a bioavailable form. And that's what enzymes do, converting protein into amino acids, fats into specific fatty acids, and carbohydrates into usable energy units. We start out with an abundance of enzymes, and that's why kids can digest just about anything really quickly. The thing is cooking food kills enzymes, as they cannot survive at temperatures above 118 degrees. So years of this ends up depleting our bodies and leads to weak digestion. Taking digestive enzymes like masszymes, which has an incredibly high level of protease for digesting protein, as well as other critical enzymes like lipase, amylase, and others, is a total game changer. Suddenly, you strengthen your digestion, eliminate gas and bloating, boost metabolism, and multiply your energy. Most importantly, you fix your digestion at a core level. To get started with masszymes and to save 10% on your first order, go to masszymes.com. That's MASSZYMES.com and use the code mass 10, MASS 10.
There are 2 million mitochondria per cell in your brain. Just to give you a point of reference, the next highest are actually women's eggs, and after that, it's your heart. Your heart has about 8,000, and then your muscles have about 5,000. And a skin cell or fat cell only has maybe about 100, but your brain has 2 million mitochondria. And there's a great book that came out last year, Brain Energy, written by Dr. Christopher Palmer. He's a professor at the Harvard Medical School in psychiatry. And his whole book is about how all brain issues, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, doesn't matter what it is due to damaged mitochondria. And as you're going to find out, spirulina heals and protects your mitochondria, allows them to grow back. And we even did our own clinical trial to prove that. So I'll walk you through that. But let's talk about this mitochondria stuff. So I'm going to show you something. So here's your cell, okay? In your cell, you have a nucleus and a bunch of other stuff. And here's your little mitochondria. Now, remember, there's 2 million of these guys per cell in your brain. Talk about a crowded subway system. Mm-hmm. Now, inside your mitochondria, that is where ATP is produced. Okay. But most people don't tell you that a byproduct of ATP are free radicals. So yes, ATP is important, but you get all these free radicals going on. And the other thing most people don't know is that your mitochondria have their own DNA. We have about 22,000 regular DNA, but your mitochondria have their own. There's only 37. But those 37 control all of your other DNA. They control all cellular communication. And so when your mitochondria DNA, which are located right inside where the free radicals are being produced, they're located right inside there. That's where the ATP is produced. That's where your DNA are. So they're ringside where all the free radicals are. So they're constantly getting damaged. It's like if you had they're like air controllers. There's not many of them in an airport, but they control everything. And if they were out partying and they weren't paying attention, planes would crash. So when your mitochondrial DNA get damaged because of the free radicals, they misfire communications, they die. In fact, your average lifespan of your mitochondrial DNA is only 10 days, and your regular DNA lasts a lifetime. So protecting your mitochondria from free radical damage is your answer to longevity, protecting your health. So, but let me show you what happens inside that mitochondria, because remember, they have that inner membrane, and this is where the ATP is produced. And the ATP is produced by something called the electron transport chain. Now, what the electron transport chain is a series of molecules that are embedded in that inner membrane. There's 4 of them. And what they do is they pass electrons from one to the other. And at the end, they produce that thing called ATP, which is cellular energy. To help you understand how this works, I'm sure you've seen a relay race. A relay race with a bunch of runners. One runner runs, and they have a baton. They pass it to the next runner, and then that runner runs and passes it on, and then they cross the finish line, hope they win. Well, instead of a baton being passed along, it's electrons. And instead of runners, you have these molecules. Now, there are certain things in spirulina that speed up this process. One of them is called the blue pigment called phycocyanin. And in the phycocyanin, we'll see there's a little helper molecule here called cytochrome C. And what that blue pigment does is it speeds up that cytochrome C molecule. It's sort of like having a Tesla. Boom! It moves the electrons along faster and generates more ATP. There's another helper molecule called CoQ10, and that molecule is improved and sped up when you have red light and chlorophyll. So that's another reason why you get improvements, because algae has the highest chlorophyll in the world. And when you expose yourself to red light or sunlight, you get that process. But this is the process that causes your generation of ATP. But I want to show you something. When you have free radical damage, well, here's what a healthy series of those molecules looks like inside one of those folds in the inner membrane. But when you have free radical damage, when you have too many carbs, because carbs release more free radicals in the process of generating electrons, what happens is the mitochondria start to expand. And when they expand, there's more, those molecules get further and further apart from one another. So they cannot pass the electrons as efficiently as they could when they were healthy. What happens? Two things happen. Now they can't generate as much ATP because the electrons aren't getting passed. It's like asking Tom Brady to throw a pass in a stadium that's 5 times larger than a normal one. They can't do it. So when you have damaged mitochondria, the ATP production, the electron transport chain, is not as effective because the molecules are too far apart from one another and they aren't getting the electrons being transferred. Number two, those electrons don't disappear. What happens is they leak into the rest of the mitochondria, where they cause even more damage. So you can start to see why the cycle is so damaging, and you get more and more mitochondrial damage until you get to a stage where the mitochondria explode. That's called necrosis. And what happens is all the damaged mitochondria, inflammatory molecules that are in there, now are literally ejected into all the other tissue and all the other molecules. This is what happens with cancer. This is why it's so fast to spread. I'm going to show you it's a real photograph. Here's a healthy mitochondria. Here's a damaged mitochondria. See how there's that empty space? So that's where electrons have leaked out, caused damage, and now the ATP electron transport chain is not working as effectively. So the mitochondria start dying, mutating, exploding, and this is the damage that goes on over and over and over again. Now, if you can reduce the free radicals and remove the free radicals, now your mitochondria can start being restored. And there's 2 ways to do that. One is to reduce the free radicals that are being released. One way to do that is to go on a keto or low carb diet. They have proven that more free radicals are released through processed carbs. Fewer are released by a keto or low carb diet, and virtually zero, you never get to zero, but virtually none are released with algae or fasting. Could be intermittent fasting. This is when you get that beautiful autophagy, apoptosis, and you get more electrons moving along because there's fewer carbs, fewer free radicals being produced because you've controlled your food.
Quick question on that. If a person is fasting, can they take algae and will autophagy continue?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, they can.
That was my thought, but I wanted to confirm that because there's a lot of misidentifications around autophagy. Some people say you can't have anything, but I think there's, and a lot of that, I think, was primarily caused from the Found Your Fitness lady who was providing incomplete information. And now it's become you can alter the rate of autophagy by intake, but autophagy is something that's happening anyways. It's just accelerated in a fasting situation.
Yes.
But
and I would recommend people take both of the spirulina. We haven't talked much about chlorella, but chlorella pulls out toxins. And when you have an autophagy and senescent cells, and I'm going to talk a little bit about senescent cells in a second. A senescent cell is basically a cell that is subdivided so frequently that the telomeres are, all shrunk, and there's no life left in the cell, and it's a zombie cell, and it's inflammatory. So you want to get rid of it. But so you do that through autophagy, and also I'm going to show you something. But then you need to clear out all the junk in your trunk that was in those cells, and that's what chlorella does. It pulls out all the toxins and gets rid of things. So when people are doing cryotherapy, for example, we recommend you take spirulina before the treatment, because when the blood rushes into your core, because your body thinks it's dying because it's so cold. If you've had spirulina before that treatment, now it's nourishing all the blood while it's in the core. And then when you step out, it's also a vasodilator. So now more of the great nourishment goes to the rest of your body parts. And then you want to take chlorella, because then it's going to sop up all the senescent cells and zombie cells that were released during the treatment of cryotherapy. So it really deepens and extends and improves things like that. Same with red light therapy, basically any treatment. Awesome. So reducing the number of free radicals is a number one easy thing to do. Just intermittent fasting
how long before cryotherapy session would you take the
I
spirulina?
would 10 minutes.
Oh, okay, that
Especially,
quick. It gets into the system that quickly.
yeah, spirulina does. Chlorella takes an hour and a half to really get fully absorbed because it does have that hard cell wall, but spirulina does not have a cell wall.
Chlorella pulls the toxins. Spirulina provides the energy.
The nourishment. So I and we'll talk about more, but I call spirulina brain food because it also has all the essential fatty acids, but particularly because of its ability to heal the mitochondria. And chlorella, because it has fiber and high chlorophyll and builds the immune and gut. So spirulina is really a brain food and chlorella is really a gut food. And spirulina is nourishing and chlorella is cleansing.
Okay. That's a really good designation for people because I think we want to reduce a lot of the science into like actionable things.
Exactly. And also that's why we recommend spirulina during the morning and afternoon, because that's when you're tired and hungry and you want energy for the day and you want your mental acuity, and your body goes through a detox repair cycle when you're sleeping. So if you take chlorella before bed, you'll get a better detox, a better repair. It has the high something called chlorella growth factor that speeds up cellular renewal, it stimulates peristalsis. I tell people it's like having the cleanup crew while you're getting your beauty rest. So spirulina in the morning, chlorella at night. You can take either one of them any other time of day, together, alone, for any reason, in any quantity, but at least 10 tablets of spirulina in the morning, at least 10 chlorella at night. So we talked about how you could reduce the free radical damage by reducing free radicals by changing your diet. The second thing you can do is remove the free radicals. But here's the problem. As I mentioned earlier, the mitochondria have an inner membrane, and that inner membrane is like an ICE unit. Nothing can get in there. You could eat a room full of blueberries or a room full of vitamin C or a room full of vitamin E. None of it will get into the inner membrane of the mitochondria. Those are all great antioxidants, but they cannot get through here. The ones that can, that I have found, are superoxidase, chlorophyll, and glutathione. Also melatonin, but the first three, chlorophyll, glutathione, and melatonin, or superoxidase, algae has the highest concentration of all three, especially superoxidase. Why is superoxidase so important for protecting your mitochondria? Well, those of you who may or may not know what a free radical is, so I'm going to tell you. It's an atom that has an unpaired electron orbiting it. Nature loves harmony. It likes balance. So when there's one unpaired electron, it seeks to balance itself out. So it steals an electron from another molecule. Now that one's unpaired. So now it steals, and that's how you get tissue damage going along the way. And antioxidants have extra electrons, so they donate it to the free radical and neutralize it. That's the general way it works. Something in the mitochondria, however, the type of free radical that is produced is called superoxide, and it is known as being 3 times more damaging than any other free radical. And I was wondering, well, why is that? Well, I found out. It's because it has 3 sets of unpaired electrons. So it's 3 times as damaging as your regular free radical. Superoxide dismutase neutralizes that free radical and turns it into water. It turns into harmless water. It converts the free radical into water. So your mitochondria are saved. But here's the problem. As I mentioned earlier, your body normally makes superoxide dismutase for you from the moment you're born, all through youth, teens, 20s, 30s. By the time you hit 40, it stops producing it. And by the time you're 50 or 60, you have virtually zero. Meanwhile, there's all these free radicals still being produced, but they're not being protected any longer. And I thought, Mother Nature, she's so intelligent. Why would she having our bodies stop making superoxide dismutase at the age of 30? I found out why. We've been on Earth for 200 million years. We've only lived past 30 for the last 200. Our biology has not caught up with our lifestyle. So it will never catch up at this point. So we just don't have enough evolutionary time to get more superoxide dismutase being produced. So if you want to get rid of that superoxide killer free radical, superoxide dismutase is the way to go. But you can't find it in food. but you can find it in spirulina and also chlorella. So it's like having, I tell people, it's like having the fireman in there, because it just neutralizes the superoxidase. And in case you were wondering, there are 25,000 studies proving that superoxidase protects mitochondria. 25,000 showing that it reduces inflammation. 25,000 that shows that it protects you from heart disease, from Alzheimer's, when we'll get to brain health. So it is a very important antioxidant, but it's unavailable after the age of 30 or 40, and it can't be found in food. So this is one of the reasons why spirulina is so powerful for protecting your mitochondria, because it can get into that inner membrane, stop the free radical damage, and allow your mitochondria to start building again and communicating again. And it turns the lock so that you can restore health at your mitochondria, because your mitochondria they are your number one concern. I tell people I never eat alone. I always eat with my mitochondria, because if you give your mitochondria what they need, they'll give you what you need. It's a beautiful relationship.
So let's finish off with brain health.
Brain health. Okay.
Because this is a massive topic. It's something that I'm very passionate about. We do a lot of brain enhancement technology, and protecting your brain has become a topic across the world because of, the neurological diseases that are proliferating the planet, and people suffering, and neurological disease, particularly things like Alzheimer's, are super challenging socially when the people that you love and connected with most don't know who you are anymore, and these type of things. It's psychologically and sociologically very damaging for that close family unit. So what can you tell us about brain health?
Yeah. So I'm going to show you something because we did a little, well, first of all, let me tell you. So because everything with spirulina is about protecting the mitochondria. And because your brain has the most mitochondria, because damaged mitochondria cause brain issues, you want to work your way back to find a way to protect the mitochondria. There's also nutrients in spirulina that, like the blue pigment phycocyanin, that have been proven to protect your telomeres. It's loaded with essential fatty acids, and your brain has the highest concentration of fat. I think it's 20% fat. But what I want to show you is something. This is years ago, 20, 30 years ago, when athletes were getting concussions from contact sports, the captain would always need to know when they could let the player come back into play. So what they used to do is take a brain scan of their brain, and then when the brain was healthy again, they would be allowed back in. So this is a typical healthy brain, lots of activity. And this is what a brain looks like that's had a concussion. There's a lot of inflammation, no colors, because there's no brain activity. Now, when the athletes had another brain scan and it looked like this again, they would allow them back into play. I show you that because we did a small clinical trial in February, March 2023. And we worked with an organization called the Gray Team. They're a nonprofit organization based in Florida that tries to stop the suicide rate of military veterans, which is at a heartbreaking level of 35 to 50%. They're trying any kind of intervention. They're working with brain tap, and they wanted to look at some nutritionals. And they had met me many, many times at some of these conferences. So we did a small group. We took a small group of their veterans that had been discharged for at least 10 years because of brain health issues, multiple sclerosis, depression. And so we did a brain scan of each of them. And then all we did was we give them 30 tablets of our spirulina a day. And then 30 days later, we did a brain scan again. And we could have done the brain scan after 15 days. But anyways, here's the starter brain scan, okay, this is one of many. See how it looks exactly like that athlete who had the concussion? No brain activity. After 30 days, this is the frontal occipital lobe, and this is the frontal, and the back is the central parietal. This is the executive function part of your brain. After 30 days in the brain scan, virtually all of the activity was back. All of the inflammation, virtually all of the inflammation was gone in the frontal and the occipital part. Now, as I said, we could have done that scan after 15 days and probably had the same results. And we also hooked them up to something called the WAVI, and BioStrap, so we could measure their sleep score, their HRV, and some of them had HRV scores that increased 50% in 30 days. That's almost unheard of. People brag about having a 2% increase. So the gentleman with multiple sclerosis, I think he was like 72, his tremors went away. So we were so thrilled with showing that we could reduce the inflammation of their brain, which allowed their brain to start functioning, allowed them to sleep better, allowed their mood to improve. And this holds huge potential for anyone having any issue. We've also worked with, just with our customers, and who tell us, they give the spirulina, particularly to their children who are on the spectrum, and they are able to focus. They are able to start communicating with other school kids. It just changes everything for them. And I think it's because of that's why I call spirulina brain food, because of the combination of the ability to reduce inflammation, protect the telomeres, the healthy essential fatty acids. And it does it through food. It's not a drug, and it's, but I will tell you, the caveat here is a lot of this is coming from that antioxidant superoxidase, which, by the way, is an enzyme. And enzymes are killed by high heat. And so most other algae companies, and so is the blue phycocyanin, it's damaged by high heat. Most other algae companies use high heat to dry their algae because they're lower priced algae, so they need to get market quickly, so they use high heat. Well, high heat kills enzymes, including this one called superoxidase, also known as SOD. And also the blue phycocyanin, I didn't talk much about that yet, but it also is deactivated by high heat. And just to show you how powerful phycocyanin is, it kills cancer cells. It's proven to kill cancer cells. I would invite you to go on Google and put phycocyanin and cancer treatments. This is a picture of a Petri dish. They put cancer cells in it, dyed them purple, and then they added the blue phycocyanin, which is the blue pigment in spirulina, and they took photos. This is 24 hours later. That was the start. That was the finish. The only thing they did was put phycocyanin, and it killed the cancer cells. But again, phycocyanin is damaged by high heat. You could have brain cancer, any kind of cancer, doesn't really matter. And what's happening, the way that works is that the blue phycocyanin, it identifies the cancer cell. It either identifies a senescent cell or a cancer cell. And remember, I talked about that little helper molecule in the electron transport chain called cytochrome C. Well, in a healthy cell, that blue phycocyanin speeds it up so you get more energy. But in a cancer cell or a senescent cell, it ejects the cytochrome C molecule, which goes and kills the cancer cell. That's the pathway. So that's why I call algae intelligent food, because you have to be intelligent to take it, and it knows what to do in your body. How amazing is that?
Recommended amounts on a given day for individuals, what would you suggest?
Well, if you're healthy and you just want basic nutritional improvements, 10 spirulina tablets in the morning and 10 chlorella tablets at night will give you the nourishment and the wellness. If you have a health condition, or you want a meal replacement, or you're doing endurance sports and you want a great workout, you want to bump that up to 30 tablets of spirulina. And if you want detox, you want 30 tablets of chlorella. By the way, the detox pulls out heavy metals, pesticides, glyphosate, mold spores, alcohol, lactic acid, but you do need the full 30 for the detox. You could take 10 for the wellness, but you want 30. So if you're just maintenance is 10 spirulina in the morning or afternoon, 10 chlorella at night. If you want medicinal therapeutic dosage, 30 tablets. And we do sell them in little pouches that are pre-packed with 30 tablets. We have people traveling all the time, or they go to sports events, and they always put these in their gym bag or sports pockets or whatever. So they travel
in the morning, chlorella at night.
Yes.
30 in a day is probably optimal for health. And then athletes, you were talking about professional athletes using like 75 a day or something like that.
Well, 30 is plenty, honestly. 30, that was, hardcore,
we have a lot of hardcore people out there. So I know people are going to
Well, I would just say, remember, algae is food. It's not a drug. So just experiment. Some people need 1 egg in the morning, some need 4. So some athletes might perform really well on 15, and maybe some of you may need 30, and you might need 40.
Yeah, there's always a range in experimentation, and it also can be used in a fasting cycle. Probably a great idea if you were doing that to accelerate the benefits of fasting.
And if anyone's doing keto, it really helps reduce the keto flu, because problem with keto is you're moving out of carb-based, sugar-oriented energy production, and this will satisfy your hunger and keep your focus and keep you energized and not and would take away your hunger. It's great for any kind of weight loss, especially athletes who are either boxing or they need to manage their weight while also being able to perform. So I've been doing intermittent fasting with algae for years, and honestly, I don't know, I couldn't live without this stuff. It's crazy.
That's beautiful. So where do people find this stuff, order this stuff, get it, find out more for their company? Like your company is unique. It's at the top of the food chain as far as providing high quality products. You don't want chemical extractions that can cause cytotoxicity or genotoxicity. It's happening in the algae oils that you can see that happening. And then you want to avoid high temperature processing.
Yes.
Can be damaging, and that's why there might be a price difference. But you've got a great offer for our listeners today.
Yes.
So go ahead and hit it up.
Come and visit us at energybits.com, ENERGYBITS, and the 20% discount code is Bioptimizers, all one word. Yay. And it works all the time. So don't panic. You don't have to rush in like 24 hours or something. But again, remember, one bag, we have canisters and bags and boxes. A big bag is your best value. There's 1,000 tablets. Remember, if you took 10 a day, that would last you 3 months. It gives you 551 pounds of vegetables. And if you took 10 a day, that works out to about $1 a day. But if you're still not ready for that big purchase, go to Amazon. We sell them for $6, a little pouch of 30 tablets. But come and visit us anyways, because we write a full blog always with PubMed references. We're very science-based. And on the quality piece, we do third-party lab tests here at an FDA-approved lab. We also test for mycotoxins. Mycotoxins are a big deal. And you never want algae from a lake or an ocean. It's the only food you never want wild. Why? Because you can't keep mycotoxins out of the water. And so if they're in the water, I can promise you they're going to be in the algae. And I want to tell people we grow ours in cultivated, triple filtered spring mountain water. There's no mycotoxins in the water, so there's no mycotoxins in the algae. And it took me 2 years, but I found a lab that tests only for mycotoxins, and we never have them. And we are also the only algae that I'm aware of that is sold through doctors' offices, functional medicine. I'm speaking at the National Therapeutic. I'm blanking on the name of the association. Anyways, and I'm actually working on my PhD because I'm so fascinated with the science of all this that I want people to feel completely comfortable with my knowledge base. I tell people algae isn't new. It's just new to you. And you don't know about it because it's not grown here. 99% of it's grown in Asia and nobody's told you about it. So that's what we're doing. We're just sharing the science that's been around, trying to make it more accessible to you. I also say, well, yoga had been around for centuries, but until Lululemon made it kind of popular and made it more mainstream, it was still kind of out of most people's lifestyle. And now yoga is everywhere. Thank God. I love yoga. So we're kind of doing the same thing for algae. Algae's been around for 4 billion years, but nobody told you about it. So and nobody made it really safe. And that's what we do.
Thanks so much, Catherine. The site is Energy Bits. All the links are in the show notes. Take advantage of it. This is a great product. I love it. And I'm sure you will too. And of course, you can get that 20% discount. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you like the episode, share it with someone you care about, like, subscribe, and I want to thank you so much from Bioptimizers. This is another edition of the Awesome Health Show. 20 years we've been doing this, and we're ready for the next 20 years. Thanks so much. We'll see you again soon.
And now for a Bioptimizers fixed digestion tip: how to get away with eating sugar. Hey, look, sugar is normally one of the worst things for you. But let's be honest. I mean, we all cheat from time to time. And here's a little trick that will ensure your body benefits from the sugar. Now, before you eat or drink anything sweet, take 5 to 8 capsules of P3OM. The patented strain in the formula devours sugar so fast it literally doubles in the body every 20 minutes in the presence of sugar. That doesn't mean that you can or you should eat a bunch of sugar or sit around all day doing that. But on the days that you do cheat or you go after one of those maybe meals that you wouldn't normally do, this ensures that you get something in your gut that eats the sugar. And it's not going to feed the bad guys or spike your blood glucose nearly as much. So to learn more about P3OM and its sugar-devouring and protein-digesting properties and how it can transform your gut and metabolism, go to www.bioptimizers.com.
Thank you for listening to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. You can find more information at bioptimizers.com.